Hello there everyone, Inky Fingers here from Inky Fingers Architectural Art. Now at this time of year here in the UK we're getting really well into winter. All the trees are bare of leaves. You wake up in the morning and you get these grey foggy skies, foggy landscape conditions. It's very atmospheric, very painterly. So I thought today I'd do a very atmospheric type of painting. And this is what we're going to do. It's just a nice old house next to a stream, a little bit of brash landscape, and a nice sort of misty, foggy type of day. Now I've chosen this picture because I like the architecture, and it's definitely got an influence on a building in Edinburgh called the Writers' Museum, and this is that very building which I drew about a year ago. And we have this tower here, which is definitely, perhaps it's done by the same architect, but that's definitely the same piece of architecture. So it does appeal to me. Now to achieve this misty dull day, we have to knock our colours down. We have to tone them all down. So we can't have bright colours on something like this. Everything's got to be greyed out a little bit. Now, how do we do that? Of course, we can do it the proper way, or the correct way, if you want to do it like this, is that to take a colour and then add its complementary. For example, if we had some green here, you could take a green and then add a touch of red, and that, because they're opposite, the complementary colours, the green would be toned down to a more neutral, duller green. And you could do that with all colours. Or you could use, another way is to use something like Payne's Grey. Now Payne's Grey is, of course, as everyone will know, it's a blackish bluey black colour. Usually, now it depends on what brand, because all brands have their own little colours. But Payne's Grey it's a nice colour. It gives us that type of colour. Very, very nice. So if we say we have a blue, we'll have some cobalt blue in here, and then we add a little bit of Payne's Grey. We can see it subdues it down. So we're taking the blue out a little bit more, and now we've got a very nice grey, slightly blue, more of a neutrally type of grey, I would think, but it is a very nice colour. And we can do that with reds, yellows. For example, we'll have just a yellow. Now you can see what's happening because I've got some Payne's Grey on the brush still. It's slightly yellow, greenish. Add a little bit of Payne's Grey, and you get this lovely subdued yellow. Or we can use another colour, and that colour is called Neutral Tint. This is a Van Gogh version. It's just a student version, but it's a really, really top quality version. So if you take a little bit of Payne's Grey, Neutral Tint, and we can see what that is like. It's a bit like Payne's Grey, but what Neutral Tint is usually used for is to subdue colours, to knock colours down. So if you have our cobalt blue again, and then we stick a little bit of this in, then we get this gorgeous sort of subdued blue. Add a touch more of the Neutral Tint, and you see we get a nice darker value, and it's changed the hue, of course. But could be a very, very nice shadow colour. We'll do one more colour. This is a different one, a nice bright vivid. This is cadmium red medium. Which we'll put here. So this is cad red medium, a lovely vibrant red. But if we put some of the neutral tint in, which I've got in this receptacle there, it knocks it down to a lovely sort of, could be a red in shadow. Put a little bit more neutral tint in, and we get this beautiful subdued red, very much different from the original untouched colour. And then the more, of course, the more neutral tint we put in, the more duller this red will get, until the darkness, the blackness of the neutral tint starts to push through. So in this picture, this is how I'm going to subdue the colours, by using neutral tint in with all the mixes, just to knock those colours down, to make it look very sort of wintry. Now I've already drawn the picture out. It's just a pretty loose-ish freehand drawing. So to start this picture, we need to have a wash over the entire picture to form the basis, the tone of the picture. And this is also going to be the misty background. So what I've mixed is some French ultramarine and neutral tint, and I've mixed it so I've put enough water in so it's extremely dilute. So when we put it on the paper, it's going to give that nice bluish tinge. This picture, it's much more white looking, but I want a sort of bluish tinge over the picture to give it that cool tonal values. So I'm using just a number 10 squirrel hair brush. This paper is Arch Rough, just under A4, and the desk, the surface is on just a very slight angle, and I'm doing this on dry paper. And I'm just going to wash this paint over the entire picture. Now this picture, or the paper, is now dry. It has gone very pale. I'm not even sure if you could see it on the camera, but it is just a sort of a greyish, a very light greyish blue. So now the next thing we need to do is I want to put some of this greenery, of this shrubbery and brush and bracken in the foreground. So I want it to be soft. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dampen off the foreground, the ground, and then into that I've mixed some colours up. This is just some yellow ochre, a little bit of azo yellow medium, no dark in it. This is the only colour I want, ever so slightly bright, but the yellow ochre has toned it down still. This colour is burnt sienna with a little bit of the neutral tint. This colour is dusk yellow with a touch of the neutral tint, and this colour is jade green, again with some neutral tint. So you've got a couple of greens because it is quite green in the foreground. So a light, a medium tone, a dark tone, and this is just for some dead twigs, leaves or whatever. So to dampen it off, I'm using a big flat brush so I can go along and around the building. I can go over those trees. I'm going to sort of miss some of the water, and we've got this ivy going up the building itself, so I may as well, while I'm here, put some colour onto that. and then just using a smallish brush. This is a number 7, a number 7 round sable. I'm just going to sort of paint in this background, changing the colours. We go into a little bit of this brighter colour, but as you can see, it's not really that bright. Some of that brighter colour is down by the shoreline here, or the bank is a river, is a stream really. We'll have a little bit more of that there. Up here we'll start and have a little bit of this red. We'll put a little bit of this red around here. Go into this dark again and just put it in. Drop it in, blend it out a little bit, or let it do what it likes. Because it's wet, it'll do what it wants. Just let it. A little bit of the dark there, and I'm going to put just a little bit of this colour just on there, like so. To give it a little bit of more texture, I'm going to use this darker paint, and I'm just going to have a little bit of splatter. As you can see, it does a nice job of giving a nice bit of texture. The foreground is pretty dry. It's ever so slightly damp, but it doesn't really matter much, because we're going to go now to the building itself. Now the building, it looks like a stone type of walls. And they're sort of a yellow ochre come raw sienna type of colour. So what I've done, I've mixed two colours. This is raw sienna with a touch of this mix, which is a mix I did for the sky. Just it darkens it down. And this is yellow ochre again with a touch of this sky mix in. And again, that has toned the yellow down. So we've got a light colour and sort of more of a darker colour. I'm going to go into the light and then just paint in. Now you can see it is yellow ochre, but it's very, very subdued. It's not as bright as it usually is. So we have something like that. Now I'm just going to put a little bit more of this raw sienna in, a little bit of the more of the neutral tint from the pan into this. I'm just going to change to quite a small brush and just drop in some of this darker colour here and there, just to give it a little bit of tone. I think we can use this colour for the roof, because it looks like a dark tiled roof. Now this is dry. Before we do anything to this, we've got some trees we can put in. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to paint in this is not in the photograph, I'm going to paint in some distant trees in the background using this colour we used for the sky. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to dampen off from the horizon, going up a little bit further past to where I want the height, and then apply this on wet paper so it blends and spreads upwards into the sky, and that'll give us some nice and distant trees. And then we'll try this. We'll put it in there, make it a little bit darker. And then we'll just do that there like so. Now that looks like it's basically a wood further on in the distance. Lots and lots and lots of trees, but because it's so far away, we're not seeing individual trees. That's only for the foreground. So, and plus it gives a nice bit of depth towards the background. Because of the cold colour, it sort of pushes these trees in the background, pushes this into the foreground. Now these background trees have now dried, and you can see it's just a soft, fuzzy background sort of mass. Look like trees in the background. So now what we can do is we've got trees here and there, some smaller trees here, some big more close trees here. So I'm going to mix up what I've mixed up. You can see it here. Now again, this is just ultramarine blue and neutral tint, but more neutral tint than the blue, and that's going to make a nice dark colour. So we can paint in this tree there. As it's quite close, it is quite dark. And I've used French ultramarine and the neutral tint because we're just using a couple of colours for the whole picture. So all we really need here is to paint in pretty flat. It's not really going to have much detail. Just make a few little knobbles here and there in the tree to make it so it's not exactly straight. And then I'm just going to soften this bit out so it appears that it's going into this, at least for now, into the ground. We've got a little bit of a run there, so it must have been slightly damp, but we'll just with that, there you go, it's now a little bit of a branch. And I have painted or drew in some branches. And we're going to do the same, exactly the same with this one in on the right hand side, still in the foreground, so I'm still going to use the same paint. Now what I'll do later on, when all this is done, I'll get a smaller brush, a thin rigger, and I'll extend these branches going over the building, so it's going to push the building into the background. And this tree can be some sort like a frame to frame the picture. And I'll just continue for these trees in the background. As we can see in the photograph, we've got some really faint trees, and as they come forward they get a bit stronger, bit stronger until you get to these ones we've just done, which is full strength. So all I've done, this is the paint we used for these trees. I've just put some in there, this receptacle, and watered it down. So it's the same colour but just much fainter, much more dilute. And all I'm going to do there is simply paint the other trees in. Trunks first. We have a tree trunk here. You can just go over this because this is now lighter than the foreground tree. Now before it all dries, I've just changed to a really just an inexpensive #1 rigger, Dale brand, by Dale Rowney. It's pretty much a cheap, I think it's pretty much the cheapest brush they do. It's just a synthetic, but it's long, thin and pointy. So what I can do here now is to just extend some of these branches like so, and we'll just give the impression that is a lot of detail. Now the picture's dried, we can now go and put some more detailing in this picture and more tonal values actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this dome in and put maybe another wash on the roofs, and again I'm just going to use the same colours we've used for the trees. I'm going to put some colour on like so, and then with a clean brush drop some water on and just pull it around. So like it's darker on one side and a little bit lighter, and we can see that underwash showing through. Now we're going to put some of the ivy up on the walls. So I've just mixed in some, this is just the same colours as I've mixed in the foreground. And I'm just going to dab this on. And then I'm just to pull it round with a little bit of water. A touch more of the Payne's Grey, and then just dab this here and there at the bottom to make it look like it's like multi-toned. Like that. Now while we've got this colour, we can also now try and put a little bit of shoreline in, or the riverbank I should say. Drop a bit of water on, just pull it up so you're blurring that line. So now this is dry. I'll put some more colour onto the building. Now this is just going to be this sort of dirtyish Rosa colour. And I'm just going to define some of these areas, especially where we have some shading, some shadow. So it looks like whatever light there is, we can have coming from the right hand side. So we can put a little bit of shading onto the left. Now the basic tones are in on the building. I'm just going to paint in this stream. So it wants to be very light there. We've got some, this is that shaft of light there, so it wants to be quite light around there. I'm going to give it a little going over with a pen, some ink. I'm going to use the Pilot Parallel pen with a 1.5mm nib. Now what I'm doing here is I'm not looking at the photograph. I'm just drawing in where I think it needs the ink. I'm being very, very loose, very, very free. Just simple outlines and with a little hint of details like I've just done with the tiles. And I'm just filling in a little bits of the foliage just to give a bit of dark. Now the tree of course was just a dark shape, so I'm just putting some thin lines in to represent bark. Very simple and it's effective. Now a touch of texture, a little bit of light with a bit of white ink, diluted white ink just splattered on the ground. These could be flowers or whatever. Just a few little bits and bobs. And a little bit of white ink for some reflection in the water. And this is just a little bit of burnt raw sienna and a little bit of white ink, because around the windows they had some light bits. And then finally, as I said earlier, just some branches over the building to frame it. And that's the picture completed. Just a simple, quite loose, dulled down version of a building in the woods in the sort of the mist in the background. All the colours are dulled using neutral tint. Does work. Everything has got that subdued tone to it. Lots and lots of texture in the foreground to try and match up with the amount of texture that was in the photograph. Of course, the splattering and the dry brush on rough paper does help. A soft background glow with the wet and wet washes in the background, which helps make the main building stand out in sharp relief. And that's it. So hope you enjoyed this little video demonstration. If you did, then please subscribe if you haven't, if you would like to see more, and I'll see you next week. So until then, goodbye.